Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Women, Sex, God, Power. If you are driving home from work, or just relaxing in for the evening, or currently having terrible sex with a guy that you just met on Hinge, then please use the fact that a new episode of this podcast just dropped as an excuse to get him out of your vagina. Because nobody should be having bad sex, especially women. Which brings us to the topic of conversation for this episode. By the way, for those of you who are new in this space, my name is Juedan, I am your host, and Women, Sex, God, Power is a podcast that is exploring the extraordinary evolution we are currently moving through as a collective consciousness, the rise of divine and dark feminine power as women increasingly reclaim their autonomy, and what this means for men and their sense of masculinity as the patriarchal structures that have dominated our society and culture continue to crumble. Thank fucking goddess. Anyway, let's get straight in. Today's episode is called Men That Use Sex as a Weapon, and I don't need to tell you that most men are in a state of total dysfunction and disarray and complete disconnect when it comes to their penis and their sexuality. And of course, all of that is projected onto women. And we live in a society and a culture that not only openly accepts sexual objectification and abuse towards women, but also openly promotes it. That is how much of a dysfunctional society that we truly are. And we have all of these hidden dynamics that play out between women and men when it comes to sex, that has created total disembodiment and so much trauma. So, men that show up to sex totally disconnected from the rest of their being, the rest of their consciousness, the rest of their body, and let their penis lead and go into this animalistic state of activity where they disconnect from the entirety of who they are. And then they go into engagement with women with this attitude of wanting to consume, wanting to take, wanting to dominate. And there is no other way to put this. It's simply abuse. Every time you enter into a dynamic or relationship, or even if you're in a public space with a woman and your intention and your agenda is to take and consume and get something from her, particularly sex, most of the time it is sex, you are coming from the lowest, most abusive, dysfunctional state of consciousness that a man can embody on this planet, in this human existence. Unfortunately, so many men have been made to believe that coming from this place of taking, conquering, dominating women, dominating the feminine, getting laid, sleeping with as many women as possible, that defines their manhood, that defines their masculinity. And this is what's created this dysfunction and this total lack of awareness when it comes to how they approach women, not just in sex, but even in public. The way most men approach women in public, they come with this energy of invasiveness, this agenda to win her over in order to fulfill their sexual desire and need. And women can feel that. But because the average man has no awareness of where he's operating from in his consciousness, he's just labeled that as normality. This is why the society and the culture that we live in is in total shambles and disarray as far as relationships are concerned. Because this behavior that is nothing short of abuse in the way that men approach sex has been labeled as normal. That's just what men do. That's just how men are. That's how you get laid. That's the only way that you're going to get sex. If you use all these manipulative tactics and behaviors, if you force your way into a woman's life, if you force your way into a woman's public, private space, into her body, and most men don't understand also that when you are entering into a woman's body, it's still an invasion. It doesn't matter how much respect it's done with or how much consciousness or awareness it's done with, it's still an invasion. So one of the reasons why this debate and this topic around women and dating and men and relationships and sex is just so complex right now. Or not even complex, but such a difficult one to engage with, is because men don't want to learn from women. Men don't want to listen to women. Women will tell men all the time about their experiences of sexual abuse, sexual assault, sexual harassment, how they don't enjoy having male energy bombarding and infiltrating their reality every single time they leave the house. But you know, one of the reasons why men don't give a shit about the plight of most women on the planet is because most men would fucking die to have that level of attention. They would die to have that level of attention. So this presents the other problem that a lot of men don't want to listen to women because a lot of men are not so secretly extremely jealous and envious of the amount of attention that women naturally receive from men. But I'm going off topic here. I want to get back to the point. Most men engage with their penis like it's a spare, separate part of their body, rather than a very powerful tool that is designed to channel a level of life force and power that has a capacity to bring tremendous healing to women during sex and tremendous healing to his own self. And I really, really mean every single word that I'm about to say, okay? You as a man should be bringing a woman closer to God every single time you have sex. If you're not doing that, then you need to examine where you've numbed out, where you've disassociated from your own emotions and your body for fear of feeling your feelings. What is your intention and agenda behind entering into sex with a woman in the first place? What's your agenda? Is it because you've decided you have a sexual desire that you need to fulfill and you need to pursue this woman and you need to fulfill that sexual desire, and then once you've fulfilled it, you can move on to the next and the next and the next? That is fucking selfish. It is a fucking selfish pursuit. It is a fucking selfish pursuit to let yourself be led by your animalistic desire, your sexual impulse, to make excuses such as this is just how men are, this is what masculine men do, to fulfill your sexual impulse, to take from her, and then when you're done, leave a trail of damage in your wake. It is a fucking selfish pursuit. And unfortunately, again, because we've normalized this behavior, because men, young boys, teenagers, adolescent boys have not had proper sex education. Also from a spiritual perspective as well, right? I'm not just talking about the potential of picking up sexual diseases or even education regarding, rape and what is labeled as sexual abuse. Even from a spiritual perspective, most men are not taught of the power that they have, or the potential that they have to transform a woman's reality, to transform her relationship with her body and her sexuality through their penis. And most men are walking around on this planet using their penis as a weapon. And a lot of them are very consciously aware of that. They are very consciously aware of that. And they have a sick, insidious relationship, perverted relationship, where they actually enjoy inflicting abuse upon women. Imagine what kind of hell state of consciousness you must exist in as a man to enjoy inflicting pain on a woman, emotional or physical pain on a woman through the act of sex. I can't even imagine the hell zone, the absolute hell zone that some of these men must live in. But when men walk around separating their penis from the rest of their being, the rest of their body, and they let their penis lead when it comes to sexual desire, sexual fulfillment, he goes into this animalistic state of consciousness where there is no connection anymore to his morals, to his ethics. He probably, if he's that kind of man, he probably doesn't have any to begin with, to be honest. But he goes into this animalistic state of consciousness where he has no awareness of the potential harm or pain that he's inflicting on a woman through not having connection to the rest of his being and the rest of his body. And I think this is something that men maybe more than women struggle with, because when women feel sexually aroused and when women feel tuned into themselves and tuned into their sexual essence, it's something that they feel throughout their whole body, unless they're incredibly numb and also in that state of, you know, pursuing sex just for the sake of pleasure or just for the sake of getting off. Women who are embodied in their sexuality, they feel the energy, they feel that sexual energy as a state of consciousness that is channeling and moving through the whole of their body, which means that they have this connection to both their sexual energy, their womb space, and also their heart, and also their self-awareness, right? Which means if they are going to go into an intimate experience with a man, a sexual experience with a man, they are tuning into the whole of their body, the whole of their being, all of their higher sensory awareness, to see if it's aligned for them to sleep with that man, to have a sexual experience with that man. It's not that men don't have that. It's just that they haven't trained themselves because they've become so disassociated and numbed out through porn, again, through the pursuit of sex without conscious awareness of the rest of their body and their being, and why they're being moved to engage sexually in the first place. Is it just coming from this animalistic impulse that is very, very destructive when it's switched off and disconnected from the rest of your body as a man, the rest of your consciousness? Because most men are so used to separating their penis from the rest of their being when they're entering into sex, they don't actually have a felt, sensory, embodied experience of what it's like to be sexually turned on, to be sexually aroused, and to know what it's like to be able to sit in that energy without having to act on it, without having to run after every woman that you find sexually attractive, without having to constantly pursue and consume women and consume the feminine, coming from this place of needing to devour and take, which is the energy of abuse, right? Men who are spiritually developed, let's say have a heightened consciousness, have a embodied felt sense of the power of their sexual energy and how to use it. They know how to sit in the experience of being aroused, being turned on, maybe desiring a woman without needing to act on their animalistic impulse. Most men on the planet are not in that state of consciousness. They have completely severed their genitals and their penis from the rest of their body, from the rest of their being. So again, every single time they see a woman they're sexually attracted to, they're coming from this place of, oh, I need to experience her. I need to experience her. I need to experience every woman that I'm sexually attracted to. Which is not only a fucking horrendous way to live, because as a man, I mean, just from a physiological perspective, you are going to age like a motherfucker. You are going to age like a motherfucker if you are spilling your semen that often. But from a place of destructiveness, what you are creating is an energy of destructiveness within yourself, and an energy that is there of destructiveness that is then projected onto every woman you engage with. So the difference between a man who is sexually conscious and sexually awake within himself and connected to his whole being, knows how to channel that sexual energy through the whole of his body, the whole of his being, not act on every single sexual impulse that he has every time he's attracted to a woman. The difference is that he knows how to use that energy consciously. He knows how to question, is the energy that I'm bringing into this space with this woman that I'm engaging with, is it going to create a sexual experience that is harmonious between us and that is pleasurable and ecstatic and enjoyable for both of us, and that makes her feel safe as much as it makes me feel more in touch and more in tune with myself? Or is it going to perpetuate a cycle of abuse and disembodiment in my own relationship with my body and sexuality, but also in her? Again, every time you as a man enter into a sexual experience with a woman, you should be bringing her closer to God and the divine. But most men can't do that because they have no connection to that energy within their own self. So their whole association of sex and their whole experience of sex is the most surface, animalistic, and also, frankly, predatory energy. And beyond that, they have no felt connection, no emotional connection to the depth of sexual aliveness and pleasure and sense of awakening, deeper awakening that their sexual energy has a potential to activate within them, because they haven't managed to move beyond that animalistic, predatory mentality and nature. And most men on the planet are in that state of predatory, animalistic consciousness. And in order to move beyond it, and you can look into the chakras, root chakra, sacral chakra, if this is something that is new to you as a man, in order to move beyond it, you have to get beyond those lower chakras. You have to get beyond those lower energy centers. You have to begin bringing that sexual energy into the whole of your body, into the whole of your being, so that you allow it to wake up your state of awareness, so you become conscious of the potential damage that you are inflicting on women every time you enter into any form of sexual engagement with them. The way most men approach sex, actually, it's like they're walking into a restaurant and expecting to be fed for free. In no other aspect of a man's life does he behave like he's entitled to something for free. In no other aspect of his life. In no other aspect of his life, except when it comes to women and when he's in sexual pursuit of a woman. That is the only time. And then all of a sudden, women are supposed to be available for sex, even when they don't reciprocate the same feelings of sexual desire towards him. I think one of the most unattractive things that a man can do is approach a woman with that desire to sexually consume her, with no intention of getting to know her, with no intention of getting to develop a relationship of depth or trust or real true intimacy. It's the most repelling, disgusting, unattractive thing that a man can do. We've got so many men on the internet talking about being high value men, and the irony of using that term when they are the very men that are in sexual pursuit of women, whom are engaging with women with this predatory state of consciousness. The irony of calling themselves a high-value man, but they can't even handle rejection from a woman that they sexually desire or from a woman that they find beautiful. They throw a temper tantrum the moment a woman doesn't reciprocate, or they amplify the level of force that they inflict onto her in their desperation to sexually experience her. Like I said, fucking selfish. The most fucking selfish thing you can do as a man, the most destructive thing you can do, is to pursue a woman sexually to fulfill your sexual desire. That's it. There's no intention of having a relationship of depth, or there's no respect in the way that you engage with her. Total dehumanization, total objectification. Again, this is the state of consciousness most men on the planet are in. It's seeing women as a tool and a vessel through which he can offload his frustration and his anger and his repressed emotions. And the more disconnected a man is from his being and his body and from his emotions, the more aggressive he is when it comes to sex. Have you noticed this? That's a rhetorical question. Of course, most women have noticed this. If we think of the most aggressive sexual experiences we've had with a man, guaranteed that man is totally disconnected from his emotions and his body. Because the more sensitive you are as a man, and the more connected you are to your aliveness, the more vitality you have moving through your body, the more sensitive you are. The more sensitive you are, the less force you need to bring into sex. You shouldn't need to bring any force into sex at all, because that sexual energy, the pulse of life force, prana, that sexual energy can naturally move, flow through you. It can naturally power through your body without you needing to bring any form of force or dominance into your sexual engagement with women. Men that have that level of sensitivity are also men that are good in bed. Men that are in touch with their emotions and in touch with the sensations within their body, they are men that are good in bed. They know what they're doing as far as sex is concerned, because they're allowing themselves to be moved by that energy of desire, but also simultaneously in touch with their emotional state, in touch with their deeper, let's call it their deeper soul essence. They become an open channel that is able to move that sexual energy through them and move that sexual energy through a woman's body when they're inside of her. And when a man is in such a heightened state of consciousness where he is able to be so connected to source energy, to universal energy, where he can channel it through his body, channel it through his penis, that's when he can bring healing to a woman. That's when the sexual experience becomes healing for her. It becomes transformational. Both of you then get to have this ecstatic, spiritual experience of sex that moves beyond the physical, moves beyond genitals simply rubbing together, and it becomes this ecstatic opening where there is a new level of aliveness that is being activated throughout your whole body, throughout your whole being. Not just in your physical body, I'm talking about in your subtle body, in your energetic body, in your karmic body. There are multiple different bodies that exist inside of your physical body. And these are the parts of us, by the way, that contain our trauma, contain our repressed emotions. And it's through that level of sexual aliveness that we can heal when we enter into sex consciously. And because most men have such a surface experience of sex, most men will never experience true sex. They will never have a real experience of sex. They will always sit on the surface. They will always be a slave to their animalistic desires, to their desire to sexually pursue women, to be getting attention from multiple women, to be conquering or dominating multiple women. These men will never, ever get to experience what it's like to have a truly intimate, sexually emotional experience with another human being. And when you get to move one another into that state of consciousness through, whether it's through actual physical sex or simply being in one another's presence, there is no energy that compares to that. The level of aliveness and ecstaticness and love that can pour out of both of you, that can be activated in both of you when you are engaging with your sexual energy and your genitals from this place of total connection to your whole self, to the universe at large, the level of aliveness and healing and transformation that you can create is like nothing else. It's indescribable. I have no words to describe it. But unfortunately, most men will never get there because they have a sick, perverted relationship with their sexuality, with women, with the feminine. Like I said, we live in a culture that openly promotes the sexual objectification and abuse of women. And a lot of men are so used to living with their sickness regarding women that they don't even see it as a sickness anymore. And that's why it's so dangerous. It's the fact that we have to have these conversations in the first place. It's the fact that I have to say to the average man, hey, every time you're entering into a woman's body, it is an invasion. It's an invasion of her sacred space. It's the fact that I even have to say those things and then spend at least 10 minutes explaining it to him before he actually begins to develop an awareness of what I'm talking about baffles my fucking mind. It baffles me. It baffles me that this is not the absolute baseline of awareness, that most men have on this planet. Honestly, I think there should be a law that prohibits men from having sex unless they're going to engage with women consciously. There should be a law that literally prohibits men from using their penis. Unless they are gonna approach women and sex with an attitude of deep respect, deep sovereignty, and with a desire to activate pleasure within her, to make her feel safe, to make her feel respected, first and foremost, before he's even thought about his own pleasure. Oh, sorry, is that too harsh? Suggesting that we prohibit men from utilizing their penis in a woman's vagina. That's too harsh, but raping a woman and sexually assaulting a woman and young women in particular, that's not a problem, yeah? But me suggesting that there should be a law that bans men from engaging in sex and using their penis unless they're at a certain level of consciousness is too harsh. I feel like that should be socially acceptable. It's such a shame that I didn't reincarnate as a dictator. It's such a shame that my life path, that my soul's life path is not to be a dictator, because I'd be an amazing dictator. I'd be an amazing dictator. And that would be the first law that I put in place. If you can't control your penis, you should be prohibited from using it until you've gone through enough training, enough spiritual training, enough education, enough emotional maturity, development, enough studying of women and the feminine to be considered a man that is safe to engage with. Like in the UK at least, we wouldn't let mentally unstable, deranged men walk around with a loaded gun. So I just don't really understand why it's legal for men to walk around using their penis destructively, you know? I don't understand why that's socially acceptable. It shouldn't be. I wish I was a dictator. I really do. I wish I was a dictator. Essentially, unconscious men are dangerous men. That's what I'm trying to say. Men that are not conscious and are not willing to have these conversations, right? It's not a problem that you're not educated as a man sexually. That's not a problem. The problem is when I talk about this and then you argue back at me. You argue and debate me on this topic of men and the way they engage with sex, and that it is not a normal thing and it should not be a socially, culturally acceptable act that men walk around engaging with women sexually from that state of consciousness. Just because they've decided they want to sexually pursue a woman and they sexually desire her and I need to fulfill that sexual desire because I'm a man and it's my right to. The fact that that is a socially acceptable normality, it's not a problem that men are sexually uneducated. It's a problem that they don't want to listen to women, that they don't care to listen to women, because also many of these men are fucking jealous. They're jealous of the influence, the sexual influence and sexual power that women have over men, right? They're jealous that women get so much attention without having to even try, without having to lift a finger. Most men would die. They would die to get that level of attention from the opposite sex. Because, you know, there is nothing worse for a man than to feel insignificant and overlooked and invisible and inferior in society. There is nothing that makes a man more angry and self-hating and then hateful of women than feeling insignificant and like he's overlooked. It creates a generation of men who are sexual predators and potential rapists when we have men walking around with a state of consciousness that has been globally, socially, culturally accepted as normality, and further encouraged by their peers, by the men around them, by their family members even, by the media, by porn, and brainwashing them into believing that to be a man that sexually dominates is what defines your masculinity in your manhood, which is the total opposite of what it means to be a empowered man and a masculine man, because masculine men, first and foremost, are responsible men. They are responsible with where they put their energy and their attention. They are responsible with how they utilize their power, all aspects of their power. They are responsible, they are careful, they are considerate. They put their community and they put women and the well-being of women and the feminine before them. That's the hallmark of a man's masculinity. That is what defines how much of a man he truly is. His willingness to put women, the comfort of women, the safety of women before him to ensure, at the very least, that she feels safe in her body, in her life, that she feels provided for, that she feels protected. That is the definition, that is the highest definition of masculinity and manhood. And the fact that we perpetuate the opposite narrative, that if you can dominate multiple women sexually, if you can conquer women sexually, that defines your masculinity. It is what is creating so much perversion and sickness in the consciousness of men. It is a disease. Honestly, if I had one superpower, I think it would be the ability to look most men in the eye, to look any man in the eye and start making him purge, like a psychedelic, start making him purge all of his demons and all of his perversions and distortions that he's holding in his consciousness and that he's holding in his psyche. If I had one superpower, it would be that. It would be to make men purge up their demons, to cleanse themselves of their sexual perversion so they can begin to come into a clearer state of consciousness and awareness where they recognize where they are perpetuating this abuse through a dysfunctional relationship with their genitals and their penis. I know that I'm giggling here, but I really mean it. I've had that thought so many times, you guys. If only I could look men in the eyes. Although I have been told a number of times by men, they find it really hard to look me in the eye because I see into the depths of people's souls. I see into all the hidden crevices and all of the shadowy areas and aspects of a man's psyche, and they don't like it. It terrifies them, as it should do. I think more men on the planet need to be terrified by women. I mean, they already are terrified by women, but then I think that they need to learn and listen to women, specifically when it comes to these topics. Stop listening to dysfunctional men with podcasts online who are telling you that the hallmark of masculinity and manhood is to be able to sexually manipulate or manipulate women in general, have power or dominance or control over women. Completely eradicate that concept from your consciousness, please. I think that's enough for today's episode, but I would like to finish by saying that a man's emotional intelligence and his ability to connect to the whole of his being, the whole of his body, and to really, really ask himself whenever he's feeling sexual desire, whenever he's feeling sexual attraction, what is he going to give that woman when he's entering into that experience with her? Firstly, are those feelings reciprocated? If they're not, then end of the conversation, move on. But if you could do one thing, if you could change one thing in the way that you engage with women sexually, begin to bring greater awareness to the energy that you are bringing to a woman when you're engaging with her. Are you just focused on the pursuit of sexually consuming her and experiencing her to fulfill your sexual desire? Because that is abusive. That is abusive. It's abuse towards women. It's abuse to the feminine within a woman. And we can't have men walking around on this planet saying, there aren't feminine women anymore. Women are in their masculine. There are no more feminine women. Yes, because you've abused the feminine within women so much through the misuse of your penis, through the misuse of your sexuality. So men have no right to be talking about how there are no more feminine women on this planet when they have abused the feminine within women through their unconscious engagement with sex. The feminine within women will begin to heal and will begin to come back online when more men approach sex, their sexual desire towards a woman with the utmost respect, awareness, and asking themselves, am I, in entering into this experience as a man, is my agenda and my intention to take and abuse and just enjoy myself with no deeper awareness of the feelings or emotions that I might be perpetuating in her, the sexual trauma that I might be reactivating in her? Because if that's my attitude, I'm just coming to take and consume from her, then please leave her the fuck alone. Please leave her the fuck alone. You have no business going anywhere near a woman, anywhere near a sexual interaction with a woman if you are coming with the agenda of taking and consuming and filling yourself up and fulfilling your sexual desire and then moving on to the next and the next and the next. If that's your attitude, then please leave women the fuck alone until you know how to go into a sexual experience and actually give and actually care about the human being, the woman you're engaging with, to heal any programming that might have caused you to dehumanize and objectify her. Because until we have more men who are operating from that state of heightened consciousness when it comes to their sexual desire, you should not be talking about how there are no more feminine women on the planet, because men are the reason for that. Men are the reason that there are no more feminine women, or rather that the feminine in women has gone into hiding, because when the feminine in women has been abused, it goes into hiding, and her masculine shielding comes online to protect her from men like you, from men who are sexually unconscious. So if you want to become one of the rare exceptions of men who begin to contribute to a world where the feminine within women starts to come back online, then for the love of God, for the love of the universe, for the love of women, be conscious, be considerate, be respectful, be loving when you are engaging in any form of intimacy, sexual intimacy with a woman. Stop pursuing women because you want to take, because you want to consume, because you want to fulfill your own sexual desire. Leave her alone. Until you have reached a level of awareness and a relationship with your sexuality as a man and your penis, where you are able to have more consciousness and have more feeling and bring more emotions and bring more love and bring more empathy and the willingness to really listen to her and really connect with her. Until then, I don't want to hear any more men talking about how there are no more feminine women on the planet. There are plenty of feminine women on the planet, but you will never get to experience that side of a woman. You will never get to experience the depth of softness and sensuality and beauty and grace and the potential that she has to elevate you as a man in the world if you continue to come with this attitude of selfishness and greed and wanting to consume and giving nothing back in return. Become more conscious as a man, educate yourself sexually, heal yourself, start to bring a little bit more awareness and feeling back into your being. Connect with your emotions, connect with your feelings. But do not contribute to a world of men who are unconsciously abusing women, because universe knows, God knows, we have enough of those already. More than enough. That was a long episode, a lot to take in. If you guys found this episode useful or educational or inspiring, please can I ask you a small favor? Can you share it with your friends, maybe your family members, if it's not too full on? Can you also follow me on Spotify? Can you also rate the show? That would be amazing if you could do one of those three things, or all three of them, even better. I would so deeply appreciate it. Give me feedback on this episode. What are your thoughts? Would you like me to discuss more of these particular topics? I would love to know, and I will see you next time. Bye!